Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. You guys sent us some super interesting stuff on Dan Winter and his research, and we had to take a deep dive into it. It's all about plasma, specifically this therapy technology of his and how it connects to all these ideas about ancient technologies.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've heard of Dan Winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty well known for his work on sacred geometry, bioarchitecture, all that, and the physics of consciousness.
Yeah, he's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
So we've got this interview with Dan Winter where he actually talks about therapy, how it could be used, and, the science behind it all.
Cool.
So let's just jump right in. First things first, what exactly is this therapy device?
Well, from what I gathered from the interview, it seems like it's mainly using plasma to create what Winter calls a bioactive field.
Okay, so bioactive field, what does that even mean? How does that relate to plasma?
Yeah, good question. It sounds like it's essentially an energy field that interacts with living organisms like at a very basic level. Winter proposes that this field could potentially influence things like cellular processes, boost vitality, maybe even alter states of consciousness.
Whoa, okay, hold on. That's a lot to take in. I think we're going to have to come back to that and explore that a little bit more. But before we do, let's just break down how this therapy device actually works. The interview mentioned plasma tubes, a Tesla coil, high voltage. It sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, it does. So essentially, it seems like the device is designed to generate and control plasma in a very specific way to create this bioactive field.
Okay, so plasma is at the heart of all of it.
Oh,
I think when most people think of plasma, they think of like plasma TVs.
Right.
But it sounds like Winter is talking about something a lot more profound. He even describes plasma as having a mind of its own. Like it exhibits behaviors that suggest some kind of intelligence. What did you make of that?
Yeah, that's a bold statement for sure. It's interesting because he connects this idea of intelligent plasma to some scientific concepts like phase conjugation.
Phase conjugation, what is that?
So phase conjugation is a phenomenon in physics where waves can essentially reverse themselves in time. So imagine throwing a stone into a pond, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ripples spread outwards, but with phase conjugation, those ripples would actually move back towards the original point of impact.
Wow.
And Winter seems to be suggesting that plasma can exhibit this behavior, which he links to this kind of inherent intelligence.
Whoa, that's wild. Is there actually any scientific basis to that idea, though? And how does it connect to the claims of plasma being intelligent?
Yeah, well, phase conjugation is a real phenomenon. There's documented scientific evidence, but whether it's directly linked to plasma intelligence is something that would require a lot more exploration.
Right.
He also mentioned something called mitogenic radiation in relation to plasma's effects on living organisms.
Mitogenic radiation, what's that?
So essentially, it's a type of radiation that some researchers believe can stimulate cell growth and even accelerate healing.
Okay.
And Winter seems to be proposing that plasma can emit mitogenic radiation, which might explain some of the health benefits.
So we're talking about plasma that might be able to reverse time, stimulate cell growth. A&D has intelligence. If that's true, this is not just a new TV screen. This could be huge.
It could be, but it's important to remember that, these are just theories at this point. We need to approach all of this with a healthy dose of skepticism and see what further research reveals.
Yeah, right, of course. It's all very exciting, but we need to make sure we're separating speculation from actual science.
Yeah.
Speaking of pushing boundaries, Winter also makes some pretty bold claims about ancient technologies like the Ark of the Covenant and Egyptian pyramids, saying they were basically ancient plasma projectors. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
He seems to be suggesting that many ancient cultures may have understood and used plasma in ways that we're only starting to rediscover today.
Okay.
He points to the recurring motif of stargates in ancient mythology as potential evidence of advanced plasma technologies that may have allowed for travel or communication across vast distances.
Hold on. Stargates, are we talking about like those portal-like things you see in science fiction?
Exactly. Of course, whether these stories are literal descriptions of technology or just symbolic myths is up for debate. But it's fascinating to consider the possibility that ancient cultures might have known a lot more about harnessing energy than we give them credit for.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So is he saying that these ancient structures, they weren't just for show, that they were actually functional technologies harnessing the power of plasma?
That seems to be the gist of it, yeah. He suggests that structures like the pyramids might have been designed to generate and manipulate plasma fields for various purposes, perhaps for healing, spiritual experiences, or even influencing weather patterns.
Whoa, ancient civilizations controlling the weather with plasma. That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. Is there any evidence to support that?
Well, concrete evidence is pretty hard to come by, but some researchers point to the specific geometries and materials used in many ancient structures, suggesting that they might align with principles of energy flow and resonance that we're only beginning to understand today.
So we're talking about ancient cultures potentially having a deeper understanding of physics and energy than we currently realize.
It's certainly a compelling possibility, but maybe let's shift gears a bit and talk about therapy's potential applications in the here and now. Winter mentions some incredible claims about rejuvenation and even time travel.
Rejuvenation and time travel. This just keeps getting more and more intriguing. So what's the basis for these claims?
He suggests that by creating a highly coherent bioactive field, the therapy device could potentially accelerate cellular regeneration, maybe even influencing the aging process.
So are we talking about a potential fountain of youth here?
It's a bold claim.
Right.
He proposes that the plasma field generated by therapy can increase the efficiency of charge circulation within the body, which he believes could optimize cellular function, boost metabolism, and maybe even reverse some of the effects of aging.
Okay, wow. That sounds almost too good to be true. But before we get too carried away, let's talk about the risks. Winter himself mentioned some potential downsides to messing with these powerful energies.
Yes, he's very clear about the potential risks, especially if the technology isn't used responsibly. He talks about the importance of shareable thoughts and positive intentions when interacting with plasma fields.
Shareable thoughts? What does that even mean?
He emphasizes that negative emotions or discordant thoughts can create instability or even harmful effects.
Oh.
It's like the old saying, thoughts become things, right?
Right.
He seems to be suggesting that our thoughts and intentions can literally shape the behavior of plasma.
So our mental and emotional state actually matter when we're dealing with this technology. It's not just about the hardware, but about the inner software, so to speak.
It seems to be a recurring theme in his work. He suggests that achieving a state of inner coherence where our thoughts, emotions, and energy are aligned is crucial for safely and effectively harnessing the power of plasma.
Right.
He even mentions potential risks like uncontrolled time shifts and mental instability if one's aura or energy field isn't properly prepared.
Uncontrolled time shifts and mental instability. That sounds pretty serious. What does he suggest people do to prepare?
He stresses the importance of cultivating positive, life-affirming intentions when interacting with these energies. He suggests practices like meditation and visualization to help achieve a more balanced and coherent internal state.
So it's almost like you need a spiritual practice to use this technology safely. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's a really interesting perspective. It seems Winter is advocating for a holistic approach where our inner world and outer world are deeply interconnected.
This is all incredibly fascinating. But I have to admit, my mind is still reeling from all these concepts. We've covered a lot of ground, from plasma having a mind of its own to ancient civilizations potentially wielding incredible power. But before we dive any deeper into Dan Winter's ideas and what they might mean for all of us, let's take a moment to process everything we've learned so far. We'll be back soon to continue our deep dive. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I don't know about you, but my head is still spinning from all those mind-bending concepts we were exploring.
It's definitely a lot to take in.
Yeah.
From like intelligent plasma to ancient energy technologies, Dan Winter's ideas really make you rethink your assumptions about the world.
Absolutely. While it's all incredibly fascinating, I think maybe it's time to ground some of these ideas in a bit more practicality.
Okay, yeah.
We've talked about therapy's potential benefits and risks, but who's this technology actually for? And what are some real-world applications?
Well, based on the interview, it sounds like therapy is still in its early stages of development, so it's not exactly something you're going to find in stores anytime soon.
Right.
However, Winter mentions anecdotal reports of people experiencing improvements in various health conditions and even experiencing heightened states of awareness and creativity.
It's not a cure-all just yet, but definitely a lot of potential there.
Right.
Let's go back to this idea of intention and its relationship to therapy.
Okay.
We've talked about the importance of positive intentions. But what does that actually look like in practice? If someone were using this device, what kind of thoughts or intentions should they be focusing on?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, Winter doesn't really provide a definitive answer. He emphasizes that intention is very personal and nuanced, especially when working with plasma. And there's no one-size-fits-all approach. He really encourages individuals to explore their own inner landscape and connect with their own sense of purpose and intention.
So it's about finding your own plasma language, so to speak. What resonates with you and feels right.
That's a good way to put it. He suggests that meditation, visualization, and other practices that cultivate inner awareness can be really helpful in preparing to work with these energies.
It's not just about the technology itself, but about the inner work that goes along with it.
Right.
It's like a two-sided coin, the outer technology and the inner transformation.
I like that analogy. Yeah, it highlights the holistic perspective that Winter seems to be promoting. It's not just plugging into some external device, but about how we can use technology to support our own growth and evolution as individuals.
That makes sense. But I have to admit, I'm still having trouble wrapping my head around some of the more far out concepts like time shifts and the collective unconscious.
Yeah.
Is there any way to ground these ideas in something a little more concrete or relatable?
Sure, let's try to break it down. The idea of a collective unconscious was popularized by the psychologist Carl Jung, and it basically suggests that we're all interconnected on a deeper level, sharing a kind of universal mind or pool of consciousness.
So it's like we're all part of a giant cosmic internet.
Right.
Like we're all connected even if we're not aware of it.
That's a pretty good analogy. Winter proposes that plasma might actually be the medium through which this collective unconscious operates. He suggests that plasma fields can act as a bridge between individual minds and this larger field of consciousness.
So plasma is the Wi-Fi of the universe,
Yeah.
enabling us to connect to each other and this larger field of consciousness.
It's an interesting way to visualize it, and this brings us back to the importance of intention, right?
Right.
Winter suggests that when our thoughts and intentions are aligned with love, compassion, and harmony, we're essentially tapping into the positive aspects of this collective unconscious.
So we're not just sending out our own individual thoughts, but actually contributing to a larger field of energy. What happens if our thoughts and intentions are more, negative?
That's the other side of the coin. Winter suggests that when our thoughts are based in fear, anger, or negativity, we actually feed into the more chaotic aspects of this collective unconscious. So it's like a feedback loop. We're both influenced by and influencing this larger field of consciousness.
Whoa. That's a pretty powerful concept to consider.
It is.
It really highlights the responsibility that comes with using technologies like therapy. It's not just about our own personal experience, but about the potential impact we have on the world around us.
Absolutely. This brings us to the concept of coherence, which Winter emphasizes as being crucial for safely and effectively working with plasma.
Right, you mentioned that earlier. Can you remind us what coherence means in this context?
Yeah, so in this context, coherence refers to a state of harmony and alignment within ourselves. So when our thoughts, emotions, and energy are all in sync, we create a more coherent energy field around us. And Winter suggests that this coherence makes us more receptive to the positive aspects of the collective unconscious and kind of helps protect us from negative influences.
So it's about tuning our inner radio to the right frequency, so to speak, to receive the good vibes and avoid the static.
That's a great way to put it. This is where practices like meditation, mindfulness, and energy healing can be really helpful. They help us cultivate that inner peace, clarity, and alignment, essentially raising our vibration to a more coherent state.
It's not just about the technology itself, but about the personal growth and transformation that goes along with it. It sounds like a journey of self-discovery and empowerment.
Precisely. It's something we can all benefit from, regardless of whether we ever use a therapy device.
Right.
Cultivating inner coherence is really essential for a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not about chasing some magical technology to solve all our problems, but about doing the inner work to become more conscious and intentional creators of our own reality.
Exactly. It highlights Winter's focus on shareable thoughts. He suggests that thoughts and intentions based in love, compassion, and unity are inherently more coherent and have a more positive impact on the collective unconscious.
It's like the golden rule, but for energy and consciousness. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but on an energetic level.
I like that it emphasizes the interconnectedness of all things, right? Our thoughts and actions don't just affect us, they ripple outwards, influencing the world around us.
This is all pretty mind-blowing stuff.
It is.
It's like a whole new way of looking at the world and our place in it. But before we get too lost in the cosmic implications, let's flirt back down to Earth for a moment.
Okay.
We've talked about the importance of coherence and positive intentions, but are there any practical tips or techniques that people can use to cultivate these qualities?
Absolutely. There are tons of practices that can help us cultivate coherence and positive intentions.
Like what?
Meditation is a powerful tool for calming the mind, connecting with our inner wisdom, and cultivating a sense of peace and clarity.
Okay, meditation's a good one. What else?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are into yoga and other movement practices. Could those be helpful?
Definitely. Yoga, Tai Chi, and other forms of mindful movement can be incredibly beneficial. They help us release tension in the body, improve energy flow, and become more present and grounded.
So getting out of our heads and into our bodies is key. Feeling our way into a more coherent state rather than just thinking our way there. What about spending time in nature? I always feel more grounded and at peace after a hike in the woods.
Absolutely. Don't underestimate the power of nature. Spending time in nature is incredibly grounding and restorative. It helps us connect with the natural rhythms of life and tap into the Earth's own healing energy.
So meditation, movement, nature, those are all great starting points. What about for those of us who are more creatively inclined? Are there any artistic practices that can help cultivate coherence?
Yeah. Creative expression can be a really powerful pathway to inner harmony.
Okay.
Painting, music, dance, writing, any form of art that allows us to express ourselves authentically can help us connect with our inner truth and release blocked energy.
So finding activities that bring us joy and help us tap into our own unique form of creative flow is beneficial.
Exactly.
It's about finding what works for you and making it a part of your daily life.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about perfection. It's about progress. Start small, experiment with different practices, and be patient with yourself. The journey to inner coherence is a lifelong process.
That's encouraging. It's not about becoming some kind of enlightened guru overnight,
Right.
but about taking small, consistent steps toward a more balanced and harmonious way of being.
Yep.
But let's circle back to therapy for a moment. We've discussed its potential benefits and risks. But what about the ethical considerations? If this technology becomes widely available, what are some things we need to be thinking about?
That's a crucial question. As with any powerful technology, there are ethical implications to consider. One of the biggest concerns is the potential for misuse or abuse.
So we need to make sure that therapy doesn't fall into the wrong hands. Like we don't want some evil genius using it to control people's minds or something.
Exactly. We need to establish clear guidelines and safeguards to ensure that this technology is used responsibly and ethically. And even if therapy is used with good intentions, there could be unforeseen side effects or long-term impacts that we're not aware of yet.
So it's important to proceed with caution. Do our due diligence and make sure we're not opening up a Pandora's box of unintended consequences.
Precisely. Open and transparent research is essential. We need to study therapy carefully and rigorously to understand its full range of possibilities and potential risks.
Okay, so transparency and responsible research are key. What about access? If therapy turns out to have all these amazing benefits, how do we ensure it's available to everyone, not just a select few?
That's a super important consideration. We need to think about how to make this technology accessible and affordable to those who could benefit from it regardless of their socioeconomic status.
Right. We don't want therapy to become another luxury item that's only available to the wealthy elite. We need to find ways to make it equitable and accessible for everyone.
Right. And this brings us to the question of education. If we're going to be using powerful technologies like therapy, we need to educate ourselves and each other about the potential benefits and risks.
So knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The more we understand about this technology and how it works, the better equipped we'll be to use it responsibly and make informed decisions.
Exactly. And this education needs to start early. We need to integrate these concepts into our school systems so future generations grow up with a deeper understanding of energy, consciousness, and the interconnectedness of all things.
Okay, so education is key. What about regulation? Do we need some kind of oversight to make sure that therapy is used ethically and responsibly?
That's a complex question and one that will likely spark a lot of debate. Some people believe that strict regulations are necessary to prevent misuse and protect the public. Others argue that excessive regulation could stifle innovation and limit access to this potentially beneficial technology.
It's a balancing act. We need to find a way to protect the public without stifling progress. How do we find that balance?
That's where open dialogue and collaboration becomes so important. We need to bring together scientists, ethicists, policymakers, and the public to have thoughtful and informed conversations about navigating these complex issues.
It's not just about the technology itself, but about the social, ethical, and even political implications. It's like a multifaceted conversation that we need to have as a society. What are your thoughts on how we can best approach this conversation?
Yeah, it's a huge conversation for sure, but it seems like that's a recurring theme in Dan Winter's work, this interconnectedness of everything from our own inner world to the larger collective consciousness.
Right. And speaking of powerful technology, let's go back to therapy for a second.
Okay.
We've talked about its potential, the risks, the ethical considerations, but what about its limitations? Is there anything this technology just can't do, according to Winter?
That's a good question. While Winter seems pretty optimistic about therapy's potential, he does say that it's not like a magic bullet.
Right.
He emphasizes that the technology itself is only one part of the equation, like the user's own inner state, their intentions, their level of coherence. All of that plays a crucial role in determining the outcome.
So even with the most advanced technology, we still have to do our own inner work.
Yeah, that seems to be Winter's main message. He even cautions against becoming too reliant on technology for healing or transformation. He suggests that real and lasting change comes from within, from cultivating a deep understanding of ourselves and, our connection to the universe.
So it's not about seeking external fixes, but about empowering ourselves from the inside out.
Yeah.
I think that's a really valuable reminder for everybody, whether we're interested in plasma technologies or not.
I totally agree. It speaks to the importance of personal responsibility and taking an active role in our own well-being, recognizing that we actually have the power to shape our own reality and contribute to a more positive future, both individually and collectively.
Yeah, and that brings us back to Winter's emphasis on shareable thoughts.
Yeah.
And the idea that our intentions can really have a ripple effect on the collective consciousness. If we were to try to put that into practice, what would that look like in our everyday lives?
It's an interesting challenge. I think it starts with just being more mindful of our thoughts and actions, Are we contributing to a more loving, compassionate, and harmonious world? Or are we feeding into the fear, negativity, and division? It's about making conscious choices that align with our values and aspirations.
So it's not just about thinking positive thoughts, but taking action based on those positive intentions. It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. It's about embodying our values in our relationships, our work, how we're involved in our community, and how we engage with the world around us.
This has been an awesome deep dive. We've explored some seriously mind-bending concepts, from plasma with a mind of its own to the possibility of ancient civilizations harnessing energy in ways that we can only begin to imagine. We've talked about the potential benefits and risks of advanced technologies like therapy and, the crucial importance of inner work, ethical considerations, and personal responsibility. What a journey.
Yeah, it's been fascinating. Dan Winter's ideas really push the boundaries of conventional thinking and invite us to explore new possibilities.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. To our listeners, we really encourage you to continue exploring Dan Winter's work, research plasma technologies, or maybe even delve deeper into the mysteries of ancient civilizations.
And remember, the journey of discovery never ends. There's always more to learn, more to explore, and more to create. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.